Hello, you're listening to Sisters Who Followed the Yam, Two Women in Self-Recovery, a podcast about healing, joy, and community, brought to you by Sober Black Girls Club, inspired by Bell Hooks' 1994 release, Sisters of the Yam, Black Women and Self-Recovery. We are your hosts, KD and Takia. Welcome.
Hi y'all. It's definitely been a long time. I feel like I say that every time I record an episode, but it definitely has. As many of y'all may know, we were on the Red Table Talk. If you haven't seen the episode yet, get on that real quick. But since then, I have been busy with a lot of admin work, behind the scenes work, processing forms and finding mentors for our mentorship program and speakers for our meetings. So yes, it's been a long time, but I'm happy to be recording this episode. I'm happy you're listening. Thank you for being here. Let's get into it. Today, we're talking about homophobia in our community. We're talking about, excuse me, Lil Nas X. We're talking about the baby's big ass head. Like, we're talking about all of it. So, and I want to start this episode with a quote from one of Audre Lorde's pieces, where she describes or she defines homophobia. So in Scratching the Surface, Some Notes on Barriers to Women and Loving by Audre Lorde, Lorde describes homophobia as the fear of feelings of love for members of one's own sex, and therefore the hatred of those feelings in others. I think that definition was beautifully written. So I'm going to, say this quote again, because I think that, like, it's so easy just to say that homophobia is hating queer people. Like, no, it's deeper than that. So again, Lorde describes homophobia as the fear of feelings of love for members of one's own sex, and therefore the hatred of those feelings in others. So, of course, these are my feelings, these are my views. I truly feel that some members in our community painfully struggle with hierarchy and differences. They struggle with the idea that I have the hiccups. I'm sorry. I'm trying to swallow the hiccups, but it's a little hard. Anyways, shout out to everyone who experiences heartburn, acid reflux, GERD. That's what I'm experiencing right now. But okay, so like I said earlier, I feel like members in our community painfully struggle with hierarchy and differences. They struggle with the idea that our differences do not have to threaten who we are as individuals, especially when we all have common goals. As Black folks, our goals should be equality and fairness and justice and so forth. 2 weeks ago or so, I don't really remember the date or the day, Lil Nas X released his new song, Industry Baby. If you're not familiar with Lil Nas X, he's Black, he's gay, and he makes pop music. As a gay pop star, Lil Nas X makes references to homosexuality in his songs and music videos. No different than the way Drake and Future reference their heterosexual experiences with women in theirs. If you're queer, you're going to talk about the folks you have experiences with. If you're heterosexual or straight, you're going to talk about the folks you have experiences with. It's just common sense. It's how music and art, works. It's a reflection of who we are and our experiences. Still, Lil Nas X received a lot of heat for Industry Baby, the song. Many people hid their homophobia behind freedom of speech and feelings that the video was explicit and vulgar, whatever. A couple of weeks after Lil Nas X dropped his song, DaBaby, a rapper, Black man, made a number of homophobic remarks at a festival he was performing at. Now, I want to be clear. I don't know if DaBaby's remarks were in regard or directed to Lil Nas X. The comments were rude. They were homophobic. He also made some comments against folks who live with AIDS and HIV. They were hateful. It was totally weird and uncalled for and just full of hate. DaBaby received hella backlash, much deserved, and was dropped from like 6 additional festivals. He also lost a partnership he had with a fashion company. Now, let's be real, a cheap, fast fashion company, but nonetheless, it was a fashion company, and the two, DaBaby and the fashion company, were working together to produce a clothing line. or maybe they already produced the clothing line. And maybe I think they took down the line from the website. I think that's what it was. While some members of the community gave Lil Nas X heat and shit for his song in the video, they showed DaBaby leniency and grace, making statements like, white people didn't care when DaBaby assaulted multiple people in 2020, but they care when he makes homophobic comments. And while there may be some truths in that statement, DaBaby is absolutely getting everything he deserves. Yes, Hollywood is quick to cancel anyone who displays homophobia, as they should. Hollywood and the entertainment business industry. And yes, it would be nice if they had the same energy when it came to misogyny and racism. But when we make comments and statements like that, we're essentially saying that Black men should be able to abuse members of the community because white people are okay with it. And I have a problem with that. We cannot in one breath say that we need to overcome racism and white supremacy and hierarchy, and then in the same breath say, well, if white people are okay with it, so am I. As a people, as a community, we need to come up with our own standards and follow up when members of the community, like DaBaby, don't act accordingly. The truth is, DaBaby should have been canceled, for the lack of better words. I know a lot of people don't like the word cancel, and I understand why. But for the lack of better words, I would say canceled a long, long time ago. Just Google his name. He's a mess. He's in he killed a teen and bragged about it in a song. Now, to be fair, I actually kind of got into like a rabbit hole about the facts of the case yesterday. To be clear, what I picked on was teen and his friend, DaBaby, did shoot him. He claimed self-defense, and the case was dropped because one of the key witnesses did not make an appearance. So it doesn't mean that DaBaby's, and I'm not saying DaBaby's innocent, I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm just disgusted that he killed a teenager, a member of our community, and then bragged about it in a song. That is so gross and disgusting. In 2020, it seems like he was assaulting someone every other day. I think he punched a Black woman last year, believe in March, for taking a picture. DaBaby of him, or trying to take a picture with him. I don't care. It was so uncalled for. DaBaby is violent, and in my opinion, he's very dangerous to be around. And I would never want to attend a festival where he was performing at, because I just feel like you never know what's going to happen with him, like unpredictable. And to be clear, because, I was a fan of DaBaby when he first came out in 2018, 2019. I don't know when I was introduced to him, but I remember being upstate and really vibing with his music. But his actions and the way he treats people, his homophobia, his misogyny, I can't get with it. And I can't stand by someone like that. So gross. As a community, if we don't define ourselves for ourselves, we will be defined by others for their use and to our detriment. And I think that's what's happening now. A lot of Black folks feel like they're canceling DaBaby because he made homophobic comments, but they didn't cancel him when he was assaulting people, when he was assaulting Black women, when he killed that teen. Like, they have their own agenda. And I totally get that. And I do think that's true. I totally understand that, but that's why it's so important that we define ourselves. Because if we don't define ourselves, other groups, other entities will define us for their use and to our detriment. It's going to hurt us in the long run. So how are we as a community going to define ourselves? Is it by hypermasculinity and homophobia, patriarchy? Because that's what it's looking like. That's what it's honestly given right now in this moment. Some people in our community have this weird idea that homosexuality means erasure of the Black race, and that simply isn't true. In the piece I read earlier by Audre Lorde, titled Scratching the Surface, Some Notes on Barriers to Women and Loving by Audre Lorde. I repeated that twice, but yes, by Audre Lorde. She makes this comment, I'm going to quote it. And in this comment specifically, she is talking about lesbians and lesbianisms, but I think we can attribute this statement, this quote to the queer community in general. So she says, and I quote, at a recent literacy conference, a heterosexual Black woman stated that to endorse lesbianism was to endorse the death of our race. This position reflects acute fright or a faulty reasoning. For once again, it ascribes false power of difference. To the racist, Black people are so powerful that the presence of one can contaminate a whole lineage. To the heterosexist, lesbians are so powerful that the presence of one can contaminate the whole sex. This position supposes that if we do not eradicate lesbianism in the Black community, all Black women will become lesbians. It also supposes that lesbians do not have children. Both suppositions are patently false. Like, wow, like, Lorde just gets it, and she just articulates some concepts that are just, for me, it's maybe too hard to put in words. Like, she articulates it so well. And yes. Now, the truth is, the health and wellness of queer folks is vital to our community, to our liberation and our happiness. Like, hello, wake up. Have you heard of activist Marsha P. Johnson, civil rights leader Bayard Rustin, community advocate Mandy Carter, inventor George Washington Carver, mayor of Cambridge Denise Simmons, often activist James Baldwin? Like, hello? And those are only 6 names. Black queer folks have enriched and saved this nation and our community time and time again. They give us theories and teaching that we all should be using to improve our community and ourselves as individuals today. I constantly get asked to like speak here and speak there, and I say things and people think they're so brilliant, and they are brilliant, but these are notions that our ancestors and our elders have said time and time again. Nothing I have said, I ever say, honestly, in terms of community and healing is original. It's from our elders, people who have been here before us, specifically bell hooks and Audre Lorde. And I just feel like sometimes if maybe they weren't queer or feminist, I'm not gonna get into that word, but I think bell hooks, whatever. If they weren't like queer or attributed feminist, I feel like we would give them more props. We would actually listen, open their ears, because they honestly have always had the answers. James Baldwin, they have the answers. They have the practices, they have the lessons, they've already experienced, and they have told us in their writings, in their books, what it is that we as a community need to fix and what we as a community need to work on. But for some odd reason, a lot of people in our community are always like somewhat clueless. Like the whole DaBaby debacle, we should teach him, explain. Why do I teach you what? Audre Lorde has so many pieces on Blackness and queerness. It's out there. Nothing is really new and innovative. It's been said, it's been written, it's been talked about. Let me not even. I feel like as a community, we have the right and we have the responsibility to define ourselves, and how we define ourselves must include the queer community. Let's take that further. It must include the love and respect for the queer community. Our community consists of gay folks, lesbians, trans folks, non-binary people, and it always has. Like, come on, George Washington Carver, he was an inventor, scientist. I don't know a lot about him. I know like peanuts, right? Peanut products, I believe. I don't know if that rings a bell, but yes, we learned about him in school. He was queer. Queerness is nothing new to our community. It just happens that now in this century, queer folks like Lil Nas X are living in their truth publicly, and they have every right to. The truths of queer people do not threaten the Black community or your identity as a Black heterosexual man or woman. I'm going to end this episode by saying that if you know me, you know I do. I love our community. Despite all the bullshit we go through, I would not have it any other way. I would have the bullshit a different way, but I wouldn't want to be anything but Black. Like I wouldn't have my life any other way as a Black, being a Black woman. I wouldn't have it any other way. With that said, we have to recognize each other without fear and without feeling threatened. We have to give each other space and encouragement to move how we choose to, especially when we're not harming anyone else. Our existence, the existence of folks who are different from us, do not harm you. And when they're not doing anything harmful to the community, we must give them space and encouragement to move how they choose to and to love who we want. Our history and our stories bound us, but our differences do not divide us. Until next time, talk to y'all later.
Thank you for listening to Sisters Who Followed the Yam, 2 women in self-recovery. Join us weekly and follow us at Sober Black Girls Club on all social media platforms to stay informed.